Chargers Now is presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Will Ortner, and we have a big season upcoming for Quentin Johnston because right now there's a lot of eyeballs that are going to be focused on the top wide receiver, or at least one of the top wide receivers in Los Angeles for this Chargers team. On today's video, we're going to talk about the pressure that he might be facing and why I do think it's ultimately a good thing for Johnston. Pro Football Network put out a tweet where they went through and basically said what player is going to be under the most pressure for every National Football League team. That means one player and, of course, one team for each thing. 32 players end up getting put on this list, and the guy that's going to be feeling the most pressure for the Los Angeles Chargers, according to Pro Football Network, would be one Quentin Johnston. Now, I do understand why people seem to think this about the big-bodied receiver out of TCU. He was someone who was a very high draft pick. He was someone who was supposed to come in and kind of light the world on fire, and I would not say that Johnston has done that in Los Angeles. But I also wouldn't say that he's been bad either. I think that Johnston is someone who is clearly a starting caliber wide receiver, and I think if we all had a little bit more patience, there's a chance that he might grow into being a true blue star for this team. I'm going to ask you, though, down below in the comment section, do you think Quentin Johnston is under the most pressure to succeed this year for this Chargers team? Let me know if you think that answer is yes or if you think that answer is no. And honestly, I think that there are going to be some people that say the answer is no, and honestly, I might not disagree with them. There are a couple guys who have had worse seasons. There are a couple of guys who have been really good, but there's a narrative that's being spread about them that I personally think is a little bit unfair that, to me, might put more pressure on them instead of Johnston. Jacob Infante, he's the one who wrote the article. Let's see what he had to say and why he felt that Johnston was under the most pressure for the Los Angeles Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers picked up Quentin Johnston's fifth-year option, though a lot has changed since he got drafted. It's a new head coach and a new general manager since he was a first-round pick in 2023 NFL Draft. His production has improved each year he's been in the NFL, but he's yet to reach 750 receiving yards in a single season. He might get an extension, but he won't earn as much at his current rate of production. Now, I'm going to say it makes sense to me why Jacob Infante believes this. Not that Quentin Johnston is the guy under the most pressure. In fact, I think it might be a couple of different guys. But I understand what he's getting at here. Quentin Johnston is someone who came into the National Football League as a very highly respected prospect, had a ton of success at TCU. In fact, was one of, if not the best wide receivers in college football the year that he came into the NFL Draft, and was a large reason why that TCU Horned Frog team overachieved and ended up getting into the national championship game against Georgia, where they were, well, properly spanked. But I think that the more that you dive into Quentin Johnston and his career so far in Los Angeles, you're going to see some reasons maybe why he hasn't had as much success as possible. First, the last 2 years, he's missed some games, and I think that that has hurt him to a degree. In fact, I think last year they talked about in that article, hey, hasn't had 750-yard receiving season yet. Well, shoot, if the guy just ends up playing 3 more games and gets the full season in, he's at least an 800-yard receiver, but, you know, it's one of those situations where if my aunt had wheels, she'd be a bicycle, right? So when I look at Quentin Johnston, to me, this is a guy that continues to progress year after year, and I'd make the argument that the offense wasn't set up for him to have as much success as possible. I think if you polled any Chargers fan, you are going to realize and get a response that says, well, that Roman offense was absolutely atrocious and did not utilize the best players on this team. And I think that Quentin Johnston has kind of come to a situation where he is one of, if not the top wide receivers on this roster. And he is going to be put in a position with offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel where he is given more and more opportunities to succeed. Now, he might feel that pressure that some people are talking about, but I kind of get the vibe from the quotes that he's had that he's in the best place mentally that he's been in his career in the National Football League. I'm going to let you know what those quotes are in just 1 second. But before we do any of this, I need to let you know that today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 sports picks app and is the best place to win cash while watching sports. With the baseball season in full swing, there's no better time to cash in with our friends at PrizePicks. And I'll tell you this, the app is really easy to use. To qualify for a PrizePicks lineup, pick 2 to 6 players and select more or less on stat projections, including hits, home runs, strikeouts, and several others across all sports. One thing I love is the new social feeds feature, where you can share PrizePicks with your friends and copy lineups with a single click. You can actually follow me on the app at BigWill7774 to see all of my lineups. I have a lineup for the football action going on later on this year. Quentin Johnston, more on his receiving TDs. Kenyon Sadiq, more on his receiving TDs. Jackson Smith and Jigba, more on his receiving TDs. New user offer. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to receive $50 in lineups. That's code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to get an extra $50 in lineups with PrizePicks. Clickable link to download the app is in the comments and description. The Chris Rim of ESPN does a fantastic job of covering the Chargers. This week, obviously, we had mandatory minicamp, and Quentin Johnston was asked about what it felt like for him to have that fifth-year option picked up, and he simply said that he felt free. He's just going to be able to go out there and play football. Now, that is me kind of paraphrasing while also kind of quoting, is what it is. But I think it's interesting that he says he feels like the pressure has been removed from him because he's not going into a contract year. But it also shows that the Chargers really do believe in him and believe in him to have success for the rest of his career. And I think that sometimes we have a situation where we get a bit antsy when we're getting near a contract extension. I understand that. You want to make sure that you put yourself in a position where you can continue to grow at the spot that you're at. You like normalcy. You like being able to go through the same things every single day. Some people might call it a rut, but for others, it can help them really grow and expand upon their role. When I look at a guy like Quentin Johnston, that might be what he needs to succeed. And it also shows that he's continuing to grow for this team, and they have long-term plans for him. I think that this next year, you're going to see Johnston with more confidence. He went into a year where there were questions, would the team end up picking up his fifth-year option? He played well enough to get that fifth-year option picked up. There were a lot of wide receivers, still are some, that are free agents that the Chargers could go and sign. They haven't so far. There were trades that the Chargers could have went and made. They didn't make those trades so far. I think that shows a lot of confidence that they have in Johnston being able to build into the type of player that they want to have on this team, and he should feel comfortable about his role, that there isn't someone lurking to take over for him. I think that this team having a better offense as a whole is going to be important. We know that the offensive line is improved. That's a big deal. We know that the rest of the roster is improved in the running back room. Great. But more importantly, the offense and the offensive play calling is improved. Mike McDaniel is known for being on the forefront of offensive schemes and tendencies in the National Football League. He is someone that is going to be able to put this Chargers team in the best position that they could possibly have to succeed. He's going to get the football out of Justin Herbert's hands quicker and get them to his playmakers faster. Now you're going to have situations where Quentin Johnston is schemed open instead of Quentin Johnston having to beat corners and safeties to get open. Now, I'm not saying that he will never have to do that, and I'm not saying that it's not going to be a major part of his job, but sometimes it's nice to just take the easy layup. You don't always have to take the deep Steph Curry three-pointer. Sometimes it's nice to just get to the bucket and get an easy one up in the window. Before we continue, I need to let you know about this sweet deal that we've got going on right now over at chatsports.com. USA 250. Go and grab one of your t-shirts today. These things are so stinking cool. They're freaking sweet, and it's very nice. The t-shirts are very affordable. By the way, this is a sweet deal, so shout out to the bosses. You buy 2 items from the USA 250 collection, you're going to end up getting $10 off. We're going to have that link in the comment section and description of today's video. Go get yours today. The offense is designed now to play to the strengths of Quentin Johnston. What do I mean by that? When he was at TCU, he was known for getting a lot of yaks, a.k.a. yards after catch. So I feel like this offense, by just taking some of the easy throws, the quick bubble screens, quick tunnel screens, quick slants, quick outs, quick hitches, that's just going to let Johnston use his ability to get open and then see what he does with the football after he makes those catches. That is important to him. Now, I'm not saying that he's instantly going to go from a guy who is a good player in the National Football League to Calvin Johnson, prime Calvin Johnson. That's just simply not a fair thing to say that will happen for this guy. But what I do think is important is that the offense is going to be better suited for him. I think that Justin Herbert, with the offense being better, also is going to lead to a breakout year for him. And because it's going to be a breakout year for Herbert, it's going to be a very successful season for a lot of the other wide receivers, running backs, tight ends on this team, especially on this offensive side of the football. Because if Herbert's having a career year, well, then probably a bunch of other guys are going to be having a career year as well. Lastly, it's a loaded roster, man. The defense is doing fantastic. I was very impressed with everything that we heard about them from OTAs and from mandatory minicamp. And I just feel like when you look at this team top to bottom, it's the best Chargers team that this organization has had in quite some time. No longer is it the goal to get to the postseason. It's to move on past that. I think Ladd McConkey said it best during minicamp this week. And so I just want to make sure that I go through these quotes here that Chris Rim put on ESPN. And I hope that it shows and emphasizes exactly what I think is going to happen with this team. McConkey said, I think everybody's on board. We want to win a Super Bowl. We've got the playoffs, whatever. We got those little patches on our jerseys, but I think nobody's content with that. Now, let's go win games. Let's go set ourselves up for the playoffs, get into the playoffs, and make a run and win the Super Bowl. So I think it's as simple as that. When you have that type of mindset and everyone's bought in, Quentin Johnston's going to do everything in his power to make sure that he continues to push forward, succeed, and grow. So when I look at this Chargers team, that is why I think that Quentin Johnston might be under the most pressure from the outside media, but inside in his head, he's going to absolutely shine. Here's the best part about pressure. It ends up making diamonds. The Chargers can win the Super Bowl. Let me know if you agree with me down below in our comment section. Interested on what you have to say there. I think this team totally can win. You got to stay healthy. You got to peak at the right time. But why can't the Chargers get the job done when it matters most? Hit that subscribe button. We're covering the Chargers all off season long. Don't miss out on any of our videos here on the channel. Thank you guys for coming in, hanging out with us. Can't wait to see you guys next time. And as always, bolt up.